7 signs you are a good person. Most good people don't realize how good they are. They think goodness should feel bigger, more obvious, more dramatic. They believe a good person is someone who never makes mistakes, never loses patience, never struggles, never fails. But the Stoics understood something different. A good person is not perfect. A good person is someone who consistently tries to do what is right, even when it is difficult. In today's world, it is easy to question yourself, easy to wonder if you are doing enough, easy to compare yourself to others, easy to focus on your flaws. But goodness is often quieter than people realize. It appears in small decisions, small sacrifices, small acts of kindness, small moments when nobody is watching. The truth is that many genuinely good people spend their lives doubting themselves, while selfish people rarely question themselves at all. That is why this video matters. Because sometimes you need to recognize the qualities you already possess. Not to become arrogant, not to feel superior, but to understand that your efforts matter. Your character matters. Your choices matter. Today, we will explore 7 powerful signs that you are a genuinely good person according to Stoic philosophy. And you may discover that you possess more strength, kindness, and integrity than you realize. Before we begin, subscribe to Stoic Reflections for more videos on Stoicism, self-mastery, emotional intelligence, and mental strength. Let's begin. Sign number 1. You feel guilty when you do something wrong. Many people think guilt is a weakness. The Stoics saw it differently. Healthy guilt is evidence of a functioning conscience. A selfish person rarely reflects on their behavior. They rarely question their actions. They rarely examine their mistakes. When they hurt someone, they justify it. When they make a poor decision, they blame others. When they fail morally, they create excuses. A good person does something different. They reflect. They examine themselves honestly. They care about the consequences of their actions. There was a young man named Michael who accidentally embarrassed a close friend during a gathering. The comment was not intended to be hurtful. Everyone laughed. The evening continued. Most people forgot about it. But Michael couldn't stop thinking about it. That night he replayed the moment in his mind. Not because he was obsessed, but because he genuinely cared. The next morning, he called his friend and apologized. His friend had barely thought about the incident. Yet Michael still felt responsible. Why? Because his conscience mattered to him. Now imagine someone else in the same situation. Instead of apologizing, they would say, "People are too sensitive. It's not my fault. They should get over it." Notice the difference. One person reflects. The other rationalizes. One person takes responsibility. The other avoids it. The Stoics believed self-examination was essential to virtue. In fact, many Stoics ended each day reviewing their behavior, not to punish themselves, but to improve themselves. If you often reflect on your actions and genuinely care when you make mistakes, that is not weakness. That is evidence of character. The fact that you sometimes worry about whether you are a good person may actually be a sign that you are one. Because good people care about becoming better. The people most concerned about becoming better are often already far ahead of those who never question themselves. Sign number 2. You help people even when there is nothing to gain. One of the clearest signs of a good person is the ability to help without expecting a reward. Many people are kind when there is a benefit, when there is recognition, when there is praise, when there is something to gain. But true goodness appears when nobody is keeping score. There was an elderly woman named Sarah who lived alone. One winter morning, she slipped while carrying groceries. Her bags scattered across the sidewalk. Most people walked past. Some looked briefly, then continued on. But one young man stopped immediately. He helped gather her groceries, carried them to her home, made sure she was safe, then quietly left. He never posted about it, never told anyone, never expected gratitude. In fact, nobody even knew what he had done, except him and the woman he helped. That is what goodness looks like. Not grand gestures, not public performances, Simple acts of compassion. The Stoics believe human beings are meant to help one another. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that people are created for cooperation. Just as the hands work together, just as the feet work together, just as the eyes work together, human beings flourish when they support one another. Think about your own life. Have you ever given advice to someone struggling? Helped a friend during a difficult period? Supported a family member without expecting repayment? Encouraged someone who felt discouraged? If so, those actions matter. The world often celebrates wealth, status, fame, power, but Stoicism celebrates something deeper: character. And character is revealed by what you do when there is no reward waiting for you. Many genuinely good people never realize how much their kindness affects others. A simple conversation can change someone's day. A small act of support can change someone's week. A moment of compassion can change someone's life. You may never know the impact of your kindness, but that does not make it less valuable. The Stoics taught that virtue is its own reward, not because recognition is wrong, but because the right action remains right even when nobody applauds. If you naturally help others without constantly asking what is in it for you, that is one of the strongest signs that you are a genuinely good person. A good person does not help because it benefits them. A good person helps because that is who they are. Sign number 3. You treat people with respect, even when they can do nothing for you. One of the greatest tests of character is how you treat people who have no power, no influence, and nothing to offer you in return. Anyone can be kind to a wealthy person. Anyone can be polite to someone important. Anyone can show respect when there is something to gain. But what about the person who cannot advance your career? What about the waiter serving your food? The cleaner working late at night? The security guard standing at the entrance? The stranger you will never see again? This is where true character reveals itself. There was a successful businessman named Robert who was known throughout his city for his achievements. People admired his wealth. They admired his influence. They admired his success. One afternoon, a young employee asked him a question. What is the quickest way to know if someone has good character? Robert smiled, then pointed toward a restaurant employee cleaning tables. Watch how they treat people who cannot benefit them. The young employee remembered those words for years. And the more he observed people, the more he realized how true they were. Some individuals were charming toward powerful people, but rude toward everyone else. Others treated everyone with equal dignity. The difference was enormous. The Stoics believed every human being possesses inherent worth, not because of money, not because of status, not because of success, but because they are human. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that every person shares the same human nature. Every person struggles. Every person experiences pain. Every person hopes for happiness. Every person carries unseen burdens. When you understand this, respect becomes natural. You begin seeing people differently, not as tools, not as obstacles, not as opportunities, but as fellow human beings. There was a woman named Emma who worked as a receptionist in a large company. Every day, she greeted hundreds of people. Most barely acknowledged her. Some ignored her completely, but a few always treated her with kindness. They remembered her name, asked how she was doing, thanked her for her help. Years later, Emma still remembered those people, not because of their job titles, but because of their humanity. Never underestimate the power of basic respect. In a world where many people only value others based on usefulness, genuine respect stands out. If you naturally treat people with kindness regardless of their status, that is a powerful sign of good character. Because goodness does not discriminate. It recognizes the dignity in everyone. The way you treat people who can do nothing for you says everything about who you are. Sign number 4. You are happy when others succeed. This sign is rarer than many people realize. Why? Because jealousy is common. Comparison is common. Envy is common, but genuine happiness for another person's success requires emotional maturity. There was a young artist named Daniel who spent years trying to build his career. One day, his closest friend achieved the success they had both dreamed about. The friend received recognition, opportunities, attention, everything Daniel wanted for himself. At first, Daniel felt something uncomfortable, a small sting of envy, a voice in his mind asking, "Why not me?" Most people stop there. Most people allow jealousy to grow. But Daniel did something different. He acknowledged the feeling. Then he chose gratitude. He reminded himself that another person's success did not diminish his own potential. His friend's victory was not his defeat. In fact, it was proof that success was possible. So he celebrated sincerely, supported genuinely, encouraged wholeheartedly. Years later, when Daniel finally achieved his own breakthrough, that same friend became one of his greatest supporters. The Stoics understood that comparison is a thief of peace. When you constantly compare yourself to others, you begin viewing life as a competition. Someone else's success feels like your loss. Someone else's achievement feels like your failure. But life does not work that way. There is enough opportunity, enough growth, enough success, enough happiness. The world is not a single pie where one person's slice makes yours smaller. Good people understand this. That is why they can celebrate others without resentment. Think about the people in your life. When a friend gets promoted, how do you react? When a family member achieves a goal, how do you feel? When someone around you succeeds, what happens inside your mind? Your answer reveals a great deal about your character. There was a teacher named Margaret who spent decades helping students. Every year, she watched young people achieve incredible things. Some became doctors. Some became entrepreneurs. Some became leaders. Every success brought her genuine joy. She never felt threatened, never felt diminished, never felt overlooked. Instead, she felt proud. Why? Because she understood something many people forget. A good person finds happiness in the happiness of others. That ability is a form of emotional wealth, and it is becoming increasingly rare. The Stoics taught that virtue is more valuable than external success. If someone else's victory inspires you rather than threatens you, you possess a quality that many people spend their entire lives trying to develop. Because secure people celebrate, insecure people compete, good people encourage, jealous people resent, and the difference shapes the entire quality of a person's life. When another person's success genuinely makes you smile, it reveals a strength that money can never buy. Sign number 5. You try to do the right thing even when nobody is watching. One of the most powerful signs that you are a good person is what you do when there is no audience. No recognition, no applause, no reward, no chance of being praised. Because character is not what people see. Character is what you choose when nobody sees anything. There was a young accountant named David who discovered a mistake in a financial report. The error benefited him. If he remained silent, nobody would likely notice. He could gain money, gain an advantage, and avoid consequences. The temptation was strong. After all, who would know? For several minutes, he sat staring at the report. His mind offered excuses. His mind offered justifications. His mind offered reasons to stay silent. But another voice inside him spoke louder. The voice of conscience. The voice of integrity. The voice that reminded him who he wanted to be. So he reported the mistake. The company corrected it. Nobody celebrated him. Nobody gave him an award. Most people never even learn what happened. Yet David left work that day with something far more valuable than recognition. He left with self-respect. The Stoics believed virtue is not determined by public opinion. A person does not become good because others think they are good. A person becomes good by acting according to principles, especially when it costs something. This is where many people become confused. They believe goodness is easy, but often, goodness requires sacrifice. Sometimes doing the right thing costs money. Sometimes it costs convenience. Sometimes it costs opportunities. Sometimes it costs comfort. Yet good people continue choosing it. Why? Because they understand that character is built decision by decision, action by action, choice by choice. Imagine two people. The first person behaves well only when others are watching. The second behaves well whether people are watching or not. Who possesses real character? The answer is obvious. The Stoics constantly emphasized integrity because they understood something important. You can fool the world. You can fool friends. You can fool coworkers. But you cannot permanently fool yourself. Every night, you must live with the person you see in the mirror. That is why integrity matters. There was an elderly craftsman who once said, "The greatest reward for doing the right thing is becoming the kind of person who does the right thing." That wisdom stayed with everyone who heard it. Because goodness is not merely about outcomes. It is about identity. If you consistently choose honesty, fairness, and integrity when nobody would know otherwise, that is a powerful sign of genuine goodness. Not because you are perfect, but because your values remain stronger than your temptations. The real test of character is not what you do in public. The real test is what you do in private. Sign number 6. You forgive, even when it is difficult. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things a person can do. Not because it is weak, because it requires strength. Many people misunderstand forgiveness. They think it means approving bad behavior, ignoring injustice, pretending nothing happened. The Stoics saw it differently. Forgiveness is choosing not to carry unnecessary hatred. It is releasing the emotional burden that resentment creates. There was a woman named Rachel who was betrayed by someone she trusted deeply. The betrayal hurt. The pain lasted for months. Every time she thought about it, anger returned. Every memory reopened the wound. Friends encouraged her to stay angry, to get revenge, to hold the grudge forever. And for a while, she did. But something strange happened. The person who betrayed her moved on. Meanwhile, Rachel remained trapped. The betrayal occupied her thoughts, consumed her energy, controlled her emotions. One day she realized something powerful. Her anger was hurting her more than the original betrayal. So she made a difficult decision. She chose forgiveness. Not because the betrayal was acceptable, not because trust was instantly restored, but because she refused to let the event control the rest of her life. That decision changed everything. The memory remained. The lesson remained. But the emotional weight began disappearing. The Stoics taught that carrying resentment is like carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. The longer you carry it, the heavier it becomes. Eventually, the burden belongs less to the person who hurt you and more to you. Good people understand this. They do not enjoy hatred. They do not enjoy bitterness. They do not spend years fantasizing about revenge. Instead, they seek peace. This does not mean they allow themselves to be mistreated repeatedly. Wisdom still matters. Boundaries still matter. Self-respect still matters. But forgiveness allows them to move forward. There was an old teacher who spent decades helping people resolve conflicts. One student asked him, "What is the strongest person you have ever met like?" The teacher thought carefully, then answered, "The strongest people are not those who can hurt others. They are those who can heal after being hurt." That answer perfectly reflects Stoic wisdom. Anyone can remain angry. Anyone can remain bitter. Anyone can hold a grudge. But healing requires courage. Moving forward requires wisdom. Choosing peace requires strength. If you naturally try to understand people, if you eventually let go of resentment, if you value inner peace more than revenge, then you possess a quality that reveals genuine goodness. Because forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength under control. The person who cannot forgive remains chained to the past. The person who forgives gains the freedom to build the future. Sign number 7. You constantly try to become a better person. Perhaps the greatest sign that you are a good person is that you never stop trying to improve. Notice the wording carefully. Not that you are perfect. Not that you never fail. Not that you always make the right decision. But that you genuinely want to become better. Bad people rarely question themselves. They rarely examine their behavior. They rarely reflect on their actions. They rarely ask, "How can I improve?" Instead, they blame, excuse, deny, and justify. Good people do something different. They learn. There was a young man named Ethan who struggled with his temper. Whenever things went wrong, he became frustrated. Whenever people disappointed him, he reacted emotionally. After one particularly difficult argument with a family member, Ethan sat alone reflecting on what had happened. Most people would have focused entirely on the other person's mistakes. But Ethan asked himself a different question. What could I have handled better? That question changed his life. Over the following years, he began studying self-control, practicing patience, improving communication, learning emotional discipline. Did he become perfect? No, but he became better, and that made all the difference. The Stoics believe that life is a process of continuous improvement. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the world, constantly wrote reminders to himself about becoming wiser, calmer, kinder, and more disciplined. Think about that. An emperor still viewed himself as a student, still sought growth, still sought improvement. If a man with immense power believed he had more to learn, what does that teach us? It teaches humility. It teaches self-awareness. It teaches that goodness is not a destination. It is a direction. There was an elderly gardener who spent decades tending plants. One day, a young visitor asked him why he still worked so carefully despite his age. The gardener smiled and replied, "Because growth never stops." The visitor assumed he was talking about the plants, but he wasn't. He was talking about himself. That is the mindset of a good person. A good person never believes they have arrived. They continue learning, continue improving, continue growing, continue becoming. The world often associates goodness with perfection. Stoicism associates goodness with effort. Because perfection is impossible, growth is possible. Every day presents opportunities to become slightly better than yesterday, slightly wiser, slightly kinder, slightly more patient, slightly more disciplined. These small improvements accumulate over time. Years later, they become remarkable transformations. If you regularly reflect on your actions, if you genuinely care about becoming a better human being, if you learn from mistakes instead of hiding from them, then you already possess one of the strongest indicators of good character. Because the desire to improve is evidence of virtue. Good people are not people who never fail. Good people are people who keep growing. After hearing these 7 signs, you may have noticed something surprising. None of them involve wealth. None of them involve status. None of them involve fame. None of them involve power. Because according to Stoicism, goodness has never depended on external success. It depends on character. Let's remember the 7 signs. You feel guilty when you do something wrong. You help people even when there is nothing to gain. You treat people with respect regardless of their status. You are happy when others succeed. You try to do the right thing when nobody is watching. You forgive even when it is difficult. And you constantly strive to become a better person. Notice what these qualities have in common. They all come from within. Nobody can buy them. Nobody can inherit them. Nobody can fake them forever. They must be developed. Choice by choice. Day by day. Moment by moment. The world often celebrates loud achievements. Stoicism celebrates quiet virtues. The kindness nobody sees. The integrity nobody rewards. The patience nobody applauds. The forgiveness nobody understands. The discipline nobody notices. These qualities rarely make headlines, but they build extraordinary lives. There will be times when your goodness feels unnoticed. Times when kindness is not appreciated. Times when honesty seems unrewarded. Times when doing the right thing feels difficult. In those moments, remember this. The purpose of goodness is not recognition. The purpose of goodness is character. A tree does not stop growing because nobody compliments it. The sun does not stop shining because nobody thanks it. And you should not stop doing what is right simply because it goes unnoticed. Your character is being built every day. Every act of honesty strengthens it. Every act of kindness strengthens it. Every act of courage strengthens it. Every act of integrity strengthens it. The Stoics understood that while we cannot control everything that happens around us, we can control the kind of person we become. And that is where true power exists. Not in controlling others, not in impressing others, not in defeating others, but in mastering yourself. If you possess these qualities, even imperfectly, take a moment to acknowledge your progress. Not with arrogance, not with pride, but with gratitude. Because goodness is becoming increasingly rare in a world that often rewards selfishness. Continue choosing kindness. Continue choosing integrity. Continue choosing wisdom. Continue choosing growth. And never underestimate the impact your character has on the people around you. A single good person can inspire an entire family, a workplace, a community, even generations. Subscribe to Stoic Reflections for more videos on Stoicism, self-mastery, emotional intelligence, personal growth, discipline, and mental strength. And remember this, you do not have to be perfect to be a good person. You simply have to keep choosing what is right, even when it is difficult. Because goodness is not found in perfection. Goodness is found in the daily decision to become a little better than you were yesterday. And that journey is one of the most meaningful journeys a human being can take.